Good morning, students and Sairam. So, welcome back again, everyone. In last video, we have started history chapter number 4, the Mughal Empire. So, student, in this video, we will continue with this chapter. But before proceeding to the next topic, let's take a quick recap of what we have discussed in the part 1 of this chapter. So, in part 1, first we have discussed who were the Mughals, and then we have discussed about the Babur and the Humayun. So first let's take a quick recap, then we will proceed to the next topic. So children, who were the Mughals? Mughals were the descendant of two great rulers, right? They were the descendant of two great rulers. From the mother sides, they were the descendant of Genghis Khan. Now, who was Genghis Khan? He was the founder of Mongol Empire. Basically, Genghis Khan, he just ruled over Mongol tribes, China and Central Asia. Now, from the father sides, the Mughals, basically they were the successor of Timur. Timur ruled over the Iran, Iraq, modern day Turkey. So, who were the Mughals? They were the descendant of two rulers. Mother sides, they were descendant of Genghis Khan, and from father side, they were the successor of Timur. Now next, here are the list of the Mughal rulers. So in first part of this chapter, we have discussed about the Babur and Humayun. So first of all, Babur. So Babur led the foundation of Mughal Empire, or we can say that he was the first Mughal emperor. Babur defeated Ibrahim Lodi in the first battle of Panipat, which was fought in 1526. So Babur defeated Ibrahim Lodi in the first battle of Panipat, which was fought in 1526. So in 1526, Babur led the foundation of Mughal Empire over the Indian subcontinent. So he just ruled till 1530 AD. In 1530, he was died. Now after Babur, Babur's son Humayun ascended the throne of Delhi. But he was, first of all, Humayun's period was divided into two. His time period started from 1530 to 1540. Now there is a gap between 1540 to 1555. So this time period, basically the another dynasty ruled over the India, and that one, the Suri dynasty. In 1540, at the Battle of Kannauj, Humayun was defeated by Sher-Shah Suri. Right? In 1540, Battle of Kannauj, Humayun was defeated by Sher-Shah Suri. Now, who was Sher-Shah Suri? He was an Afghan chief of Bihar. So when Sher-Shah Suri defeated Humayun, and he led the foundation of Suri dynasty over the Indian subcontinent. So Suri rulers ruled over the India from 1540 till 1555, basically until Humayun re-established Mughal rule over the Indian subcontinent. Right, now after Humayun, now we will going to discuss about Akbar, then Jahangir, the next is Shah Jahan, and the last one is the Aurangzeb. But before that, we are going to take a brief description of Sher-Shah Suri. Now, Sher-Shah Suri. So first of all, his time period started from 1540 to 1545 AD. Sher-Shah. His real name was Farid Khan. Children, do you know? Basically, he was killed a fully grown tiger with a bare hand in the jungle of Bihar. That's why he was called Sher Khan or the Lion King. Shesha Suri, he was the founder. He led the foundation of Suri dynasty over the Indian subcontinent after defeating Humayun in the Battle of Chausa, and second is the Battle of Kannauj. Clear? Shesha Suri, he was excellent administrator. Basically, he re-established law and order in his empire. He just grade a he just paid a great attention in the development of trade and commerce, and also improved the communication in his empire. So Shesha conquered Malwa, Rajputana, Multan, Sindh and Punjab. Basically, he extended his empire from the Bengal to the Indus. But he was died when he was trying to seize over the Kalinjar, right? He was died when he was trying to seize over the Kalinjar. So he was died in 1545 AD. Shesha Suri, during his time period, Shesha Suri also built many roads. So GT Road is one of the example. GT Road, that means the Grand Trunk Road. Now, who built this road? Shesha Suri. Shesha Suri constructed the Grand Trunk Road, GT Road, connected Sonar Gaon in East Bengal to the Peshawar. Peshawar, present day, it is in Pakistan. So Shesha introduced many improvements in his brief region of 5 years, and he was died in 1545 AD when he was trying to seize over the Kalinjar. Now, after Shesha Suri, his successor ruled over the India until Humayun re-established Mughal rule over the India in 1555 AD. Basically, after the death of Shesha Suri, or we can say that after receiving help from the Sabit Khan, Humayun recaptured Delhi and Agra and re-established Mughal rule in 1555 AD. Clear? Now, next, so after 1555, again Humayun just ruled over the India only for 1 year. He did not live long to just enjoy the fruit of his victory. He was died in 1556 AD. Right? So Humayun was died in 1556 AD. Now, after Humayun, the third Mughal emperor was Akbar. So Akbar, he was succeeded his father Akbar in 1556 AD. Now, when Akbar he just became the emperor, he was just only 14 years old. Right? So first of all, when he ascended his throne in 1556 AD, he was just only 14 years old. Akbar became the emperor under the guardianship of Bairam Khan. Clear? Because at that time he was just 14 years old. That's why when he became the emperor, so he became the emperor under the guardianship of Bairam Khan. After becoming the emperor of the Mughal Empire, Akbar faced many problems. Okay, Second Battle of Panipat. Second Battle of Panipat was also very important in history. Do you remember about the first Battle of Panipat? So first Battle of Panipat was fought in 1526, right? Now the second Battle of Panipat was fought in 1556. First Battle of Panipat was fought during the time of Babur, and that battle was fought between the Babur and Ibrahim Lodi. And second battle, that means the second Battle of Panipat, was fought during the time of Akbar. Now, Second Battle of Panipat, this was fought in 1556 AD between Mughals and Afghan Hemu Vikram Aditya. Now, in this battle, Humayun Vikramaditya was defeated and killed. Right? In Second Battle of Panipat, who defeated Hemu Vikramaditya? Basically, Mughals defeated Hemu Vikramaditya and he was killed. Then Mughals reoccupied Delhi and Agra. So just always keep in your mind, these two dates are very important in history. First is the First Battle of Panipat, which was fought in 1526, and with this battle Babur laid the foundation of Mughal Empire over the Indian subcontinent. And in the Second Battle of Panipat, basically Mughals defeated Hemu Vikramaditya and then Mughals reoccupied Delhi and Agra. Now, if we talk about the Akbar's region, so the entire region can be divided into the three periods as far as the conquest and the expansion of the empire are concerned. Now, the first started from 1556 when he just ascended the throne of Delhi, ascended the Mughal throne. 1556 till 1570 AD. Now the second period started from 1570 to 1585 AD. Now third period started from 1585 to 1605 AD. Now basically in first phase, Akbar gradually assisted his freedom and free himself from the dominations of his guardian Bairam Khan. So during this phase, he just took over the control of Malwa and the parts of Central Asia. And the same during this time period, he also captured Chittor and Ranthambore. That means the fort of Chittor and Ranthambore. Now in second phase, that means from 1570 to 1585. During this time period, he just conquered Gujarat region, Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. So basically the conquest of Gujarat and Bengal brought many profit to the Mughal Empire. Now the third phase, 1585 till 1605 AD. So during this time period, Akbar further extended his empire towards the northwest, Kashmir, Kabul and Kandahar. So basically Akbar just extended his empire to Kashmir in the north, from the Kashmir in the north to the Godavari in the south and Kandahar in the west and Bengal in the east. So here is the map showing military campaigns under Akbar and the Aurangzeb. So as I said, basically during the Akbar region, Akbar extended his empire from the Kashmir in the north, then to the Godavari in the south and Kandahar in the west to Bengal in the east. Right. So basically, as I said, like the Akbar's regions is divided into three periods. So in first phase, he just controlled over the Malwa and the central India. Now in the second phase, he just conquered first Gujarat, Bengal and Odisha. And in third phase, he just extended his empire to the northwest. That means Kandahar, Kabul and Kashmir. Is it clear? So this map is showing the extension of the Mughal Empire under the Akbar region. So all these are the military campaigning during the time of Akbar. Now next, if we talk about the source of information, so where we get the detailed information about the Akbar's region. So we just get this information about basically about the Akbar's region are Akbarnama. So our main source of information about Akbar's region are Akbarnama and Ain-e-Akbari, right? So through this Akbarnama and Ain-e-Akbari, we just get the detailed information about the entire Akbar's region. Now, Akbarnama was wrote by Abul Fazl, right? This Akbarnama was wrote by Abul Fazl, and Abul Fazl was one of the ninth jewel or Navratna of Akbar's court. Wrote 3-volume history of Akbar's region titled Akbarnama. So basically this Akbarnama, which give us the detailed information about the Akbar's region, is divided into the 3 volume, right? This Akbarnama was divided into the 3 volume. Now let's see. In the first volume of Akbarnama, we just get the detailed information about the Akbar's ancestor, right? In the first volume of Akbarnama, basically the first volume of Akbarnama dealt with the Akbar ancestors. Second volume that gave us the detailed information about the important events occurred during the time of Akbar's region. Now the third volume is very important, Aine Akbari, that give us a detailed information about Akbar's administration, land revenue and the agrarian system, right? So the Akbarnama was divided into 3 volumes. So first volume that give us the detailed information about the Akbar's ancestors. Second volume that give us the detailed information about the important events of Akbar's region. And the third volume, that is the Aine Akbari, give us the detailed information about the Akbar's administration's land revenue. So Akbar's region was a stable political regime, and he was died in 1605 AD. Now, do you know, children? Basically, Akbar just tried to defeat Rana Pratap in the famous battle of Haldighati. Now, who was Rana Pratap? Rana Pratap, popularly known as the Maharana Pratap, and he was the 13th king of Mewar in the northwestern of India, present day in Rajasthan. So Akbar, he just tried to defeat Rana Pratap in the famous battle of Haldighati. So the battle of Haldighati was fought between Akbar and Rana Pratap. But the Rana managed to escape by riding his famous horse Chetak. After losing the battle of Haldighati, Rana Pratap did not surrender to the Mughals. Basically, he just continued to his fighting for independence till his death. Okay, now here is the list of 9 gems or Navratna of the Akbar's court. So Akbar's court was endowed with the talent and the brilliance of the 9 gems or Navratna. Now they were, so here are the list of the Navratna, or we can say the 9 gems of the Akbar court. First, Abul Fazl. He was the author of Akbarnama and Aine Akbari. Akbarnama that gives us the detailed information about the Akbar region. Now Fazl, he was the poet in the Akbar's court. Now next, Tansen, he was the great musician in the Akbar's court. Birbal, he was great wit. I think you all have heard the story of Akbar and Birbal. Now next is Raja Todarmal. So Raja Todarmal, he was finance minister. Clear? Raja Todarmal, he was the finance minister in the Akbar's court. Then Raja Man Singh, he was general and commander in chief. Fakir Aziuddin, he was majestic and advisor. And then Abdur Rahim Khan Khana, he was also poet in Akbar's court, and he was the son of Baram Khan. Now last is Mullah Do Piazza. He was advisor in the Akbar's court. So they all were the 9 gems or Navratna of the Akbar's court. Now next, Jahangir. So after the death of Akbar, Jahangir succeeded Akbar in 1605 AD and popularly known as Salim. Basically, Jahangir adopted his father policy. He too adopted religious tolerance and also developed marriage alliances to the Rajput rulers. Basically, we can say that the Jahangir's region saw the advent of European traders. So first, Jahangir grant permission to the trading rights, or we can say that Jahangir grant trading rights first to the Portuguese and the second English. So in 1608 AD, Captain William Hawkins, who represented the East India Company, visited Jahangir's court. When he was visited in 1608 AD. Second, in 1615, Thomas Roe. He was the King of England. He visited Jahangir's court in 1615 AD. So, basically, his region saw the advent of the European companies or the European traders in India. Now, a significant basically effect of Jahangir's region was that the powerful, or we can say the role played by his wife Noor Jahan. Basically, Noor Jahan, she just set a new trend in the base of Persian culture. She was the grace and the charm of the Mughal court. She was one of the beloved wife of Jahangir. Even Jahangir put her name on coins along with his own. She was the companion of Jahangir and she also joined him hunting. She was the power behind the throne. Right. So then Jahangir, he was died in 1627 AD. Now after Jahangir, next Shah Jahan. So Shah Jahan ascended the Mughal throne in 1627 AD after Jahangir. So basically, Shah Jahan also followed the policies of his grandfather and father. He defeated in 1636 AD, he just defeated the chief and Raja of Bundelkhand in 1636 AD. In the Deccan, he also conquered Ahmednagar and Golconda. Basically, the long period of peace and prosperity of the Mughal Empire enabled Shah Jahan to produce excellent piece of architecture. So he is known for building beautiful and massive monuments like Taj Mahal. Right, Taj Mahal was built during the time of Shah Jahan, Red Fort and Jama Masjid, etc. and etc. So he is known for beautiful buildings and massive monuments with the fine architectural design. Now, after Shah Jahan, the next Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb became emperor after imprisoning his father Shah Jahan. So he ascended the Mughal throne in 1658 AD after imprisoning his father Shah Jahan in the Agra fort. Now, defeating his brothers in the war of succession. So basically, he just brought almost the whole of India under his control, under his region, almost 50 years. Aurangzeb, he just tried to extend his empire from Kashmir in the north to the Karnataka in the south. But at the same time, Aurangzeb faced many problems. Aurangzeb was a rigid and the conservative ruler who adopted many anti-Hindu measures. He reimposed jizya tax. Now let's first understand the meaning of the jizya tax. So jizya was a tax paid by the non-Muslims, right? This tax was paid by the non-Muslims to the Muslim ruler. So first of all, this tax was introduced by the Qutbuddin Aibak. Then during the time of the Akbar, this was abolished. That means in 16th century, this tax was abolished by the Akbar. Then Aurangzeb, again this tax reintroduced. jizya tax over the non-Muslims. So basically this angered the non-Muslim subject, like who enjoyed religious tolerance and the harmony since the time period of the Akbar. So his intolerance policies and aggressive military campaigns made him very unpopular with the subjects. Now, Aurangzeb region was marked by many popular revolts. Now, all the revolts, that means the revolt of Sikh, Jat and Rajput basically decrease the economic and the social stability of the empire. First, the revolt of the Sikh, the execution of the Sikh Guru Tegh Bahadur angered the Sikh and they led revolt against the Mughals. So under Guru Gobind Singh, they just formed their military brotherhood called Khalsa and they started revolt against the Mughals. Then the revolt of Jat and Rajput, they also disturbed the Mughal empire. While the Jat revolt was the peasant uprising and the Rajput revolt started after when he just start interfering in the court of the Mewad Rajput rulers. Now on the other hand, basically he also made a political blunder to underestimate the power of the Marathas chief Shivaji to imprison him. Aurangzeb just tried to crush the Marathas' power in the Deccan, but the Marathas managed to harass Mughals by adopting guerrilla warfares. So throughout his life, Aurangzeb was busy in the conquest of new region, but by the end of this region, the Mughal Empire was in unrest. Many scholars suggest that the very decline of the Mughal Empire had begun during the reign of the Aurangzeb. So he was died in 1707 AD. He just left behind the disturbed empire and many internal problems. So though the Mughal Empire was continued till 1857, but after the Aurangzeb, right, the Mughal Empire continued till 1857, but after the Aurangzeb, the other Mughal rulers, they all were weak, inefficient and corrupt. Even the corrupt and the hungry nobles, they added to the crisis of Mughal Empire also. So the Mughal Empire was started disintegrated after the death of Aurangzeb. Is it clear? So this is all about the all important Mughal ruler. So that's it for this part. In the next video we will talk about the administration system of the Mughal Empire. Okay, so we will meet you in next video. Till then, bye and take care.